And let me know what you see on your screen, please.
Third house, Gemini, Mercury.
Beautiful. Okay. So that is going to be the third foundational layer that we are going to be getting into today. That is going to be the third house. And the third house is ruled by Gemini, and it is also ruled by the planet of Mercury. Okay. Whenever we are looking at the third house, this is the three principles that I want you to always correlate with each other. Is third house is akin to Gemini and Mercury. They go hand in hand. They never separate. Okay. Um, and the
Okay.
element of the third house and Gemini and Mercury is the element of air. Okay. The body part is the lungs, the hands, and the arms. All right. The major themes of the third house are, and Gemini and Mercury, are mental stimulation, expression, communication, writing, speaking, your thoughts, your siblings, because if we look at the symbol of Gemini, what is it? It's the two pillars, right? It's the two
Mm-hmm.
conjoined pillars, and that is akin to the siblings or twins. That's also what I want you to think about when you think of Gemini, the dualistic nature. And also your neighbors. All right. Now, sometimes, depending on certain configurations in the chart, the third house will also symbolize movement and short distance travel. Okay. And so will Mercury, so will Gemini. Mercury has a certain mercurial trait, which is of movement. Okay. And we're going to get into that in the lesson, why that is. Okay. 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 So let's go ahead. So the third house in the zodiac is the first time in which the soul begins to gain curiosity of the world around them. In the in the first house, if the first house is about life and how a soul is seen, the second house is about how the soul gains material security and comforts. Okay. Um, Also, oh yeah, the third house is where the soul begins to wonder, speak, and express themselves. The signs and planets within this house, we can see what the person's upbringing fostered, what type of expression and thought process is within the person. Okay, so so if the first house is all about the baby coming, I like to use that metaphor. I don't know if you picked that up in the last lesson where I was treating the birth chart as if it's a story, right? Like almost like a mythology of the soul coming into being. And if the first house is the baby coming into life and existence, right? Um, and that's Aries energy. And then from Aries energy, it's the baby being put on the mother's chest and being swaddled in a material blanket. That is Taurus. That's comfort. That's the second house. You see how the minute the baby comes out, it's a birth of energy, it's this spark to life. And then all of a sudden, the second house, it's how do we secure that life? How do we make it comfortable, right? And then from there, all of a sudden, what happens? The mother begins to talk to the baby. This is where the baby begins to speak. And then, of course, as the baby gets older, as the soul gets older, there is a certain amount of curiosity that happens. This is where the third house takes over. Okay. Um, okay. So, yes, so the third house is where the soul begins to wonder, speak, and express themselves. The signs and planets within this house is where we can see what the person's upbringing is and what fostered what type of expression and thought process is within the person. The more positive and abundant the signs and planets are, the more expressive and curious the person will be. The more malefic the planets and signs are within the third house, the tougher it will be for the person to communicate their point of view and express their thoughts. As you know, I do not believe in malefic planets. I don't play that. I do not believe in malefic planets. My take is that when you do have unfavorable planets in the third house, there is a specific way the universe wants you to communicate in order for that person to not run into trouble. Okay, so that is my little spin on malefic planets, is that everyone has the ability to communicate and they have the right, of course, to communicate. But if you have malefic planets in there, there's a certain way the universe wants you to communicate in order for you to be effective in your expression. Okay. Moving forward, the third house is ruled by Gemini and Mercury. No matter what the sign is in a person's chart, you must hold this in your mind that Gemini and Mercury are playing a significant role within a person's third house. As this is the foundational layer of the third house, it never changes. This house is ruled by the winged shoe god of Hermes, or the celestial body in our world, Mercury, right? I also like to akin the planets to the Greek gods because it's very symbolic to get that symbology down, right? Gemini is akin to Mercury. Mercury is akin to the Greek god of Hermes, with the winged shoe god. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I did put a picture down here of who that is right here.
Hermes is the one that has the quote, "As above, so below,
I believe so.
as within, so without."
I
I think
believe so.
that's
I believe so. I would have to look that
okay.
up, but I'll take your word for it on that one. I do know that Hermes was the wing shoe god that was always fluttering around the higher gods and scribing down things and taking notes and relaying messages. He was always whizzing around and doing things, right? And so if you also think about those traits that Hermes has of being very curious, writing things down, and then before you know it in a flash, he's off to go send that message. He's off, like before you could even tell him, he's off to go send that message, or he's very whizzy, very air-like. You see how the air is it's quick, it's fleeting. You see that in that. If you ever talk to a Gemini sun is the same way. A Gemini is here, there, they're talking to this one, they're talking to that one. It's the winged shoe god. It's the air qualities of the celestial mind taking and being manifest outwardly. Um, so I put, if you are well versed in Greek gods and Greek mythology, you will notice that the god of Hermes wears winged shoes to symbolize the airy and zippy nature of Gemini. You would also notice that there was always a pen and paper in his hand as he fluttered around writing down the information of the other gods. Um, hey Ido, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Hey, how are
Hi,
Hi,
you?
how are
Good to
you?
see
Sorry I'm
you.
late. I was taking
It's
a nap.
okay.
that's all right.
It's
You
okay.
made it.
You made it. You're here. Okay, so today we are getting into the third house. We are really early in the lesson. I will send you what you missed after the session goes, but just to cover it very briefly, we're covering the third house. This is the third gate in which the soul is coming into existence, as we discussed previously. The first house is all about the baby or the soul springing to life. The second house is about how that soul then seeks security, right? And now the third house is the soul. Then once it's secure, once it's been brought to life and once it's secure, now that soul is wondering, why is that wall white? What's she doing? It's the mind beginning to turn. It's the curiosity that is beginning to strike within that soul. Okay, and so some of the very big major themes of third house, Gemini, and Mercury are mental stimulation, expression, communication, writing, speaking your thoughts, your siblings, your neighbors, and sometimes movement and short distance travel. Okay, and so we were also uh, liking all of these principles to the winged shoe god of Hermes. I don't know if you're familiar with Greek mythology, but
Mhm.
Hermes was the Greek god with the winged shoes on his feet, and he was always fluttering around and off. He was scribing everything down, writing everything down, and he was off doing something else before you could get a hold of him. And if you ever talk to a Gemini is the exact same way. They just want to know the information. They want to talk. They want to say who's who, and they're off to talk to who the new person is in the room. You see, and so that
Mhm.
is a very air like quality.